Alright, so this is the spoiler discussion for the Ant-Man film. Just to start things off really quick, Wasp, two versions of Wasp. We have the original Janet Wasp, which was really cool. She's subatomic somewhere. We also have Jane as the first in-credit scene, or I guess in between the fancy credits and the regular credits, I guess. We get her as the new Wasp. She's gonna be finishing the suit with her father, and she's gonna be Wasp. Um, Possibly in Captain America 3, because apparently everyone except for about two people are supposed to be in that film. So odds are she will be in that, and it would be really cool to see that happen. I love the costume that they had. As soon as I saw it, the first thing I thought of was Avengers, because the color scheme was like red, white, and blue. And that's basically the color scheme. It's like red, white, blue, and black. So the color scheme fits right in for sure with the Avengers, I thought. But I'm excited to see how that plays out, because we got to see a lot of Jane, or a lot of Hope in this film, using the ants to do certain things. She has an amazing connection with them. You know, she like blocks the bullets, or not blocks bullets, but she stopped the gun from being pulled when she controlled the ants. She had the ants like flood into the room at that one point, and she's like, they were covering the light and stuff like that. So we got to see her do that. We got to see her fight. She's like a martial artist and stuff. She trained Scott. So she's going to be really awesome. And I can't wait to see how they really do the character. If she's going to have like little zappers, like little lasers to shoot at people and stuff like that, like to stun them. Or if she's just going to fight like Scott will. And hopefully they'll give her the lasers, because that's kind of her character. And obviously she can fly and Scott can't. So there's still big differences, but I'd love to see her have her little lasers, because that's something big about her character, is that she has like the little lasers to stun people and kind of mess with them. So hopefully we get that. They, like I said, with the original Janet, they do leave it open. Like, they obviously did that. It was very blatant. Like, Scott came back from the subatomic level. They had the picture that they showed, and it was just a woman, with a hat on, and we got a voice out of her. But if that changed, I don't think it would affect us, nearly as much. So they could get a different actress to play her character in a future film, and it wouldn't affect people nearly as much as it's like, oh well, they actually showed her face. It's like we got I think I don't. We may not have even gotten dialogue out of her. I don't think we did. I think it was all out of Hank. So yeah, we didn't even get dialogue. We didn't get any actual face. It's just, a woman who has a hat and stuff. So it's like they did that perfectly, where it's like it leaves it open. Whenever they decide to do it, whether it's Ant-Man 2 or just another film in the cinematic universe, they can pick whoever they want, as long as she's white, because there was a woman who was white in the picture. Um, and it'll be fine. Like, boom, it's done. The main thing that I'm wondering, though, is how they're going to bring her back, because they're either going to do time travel, which is totally possible with the gems and stuff for Thanos, or they would, for whatever reason, S.H.I.E.L.D. would still have to have that missile that they stopped, or someone would have to have a, the parts of the missile that they were specifically on, and they would have to be like, she was connected, since she was at such a subatomic level, she somehow got connected to one of those pieces, and then Hank comes in, he figures out that it was the little growing disc that helped Scott survive. He throws one on there, it grows super huge, and then she grows back to normal size, and it's like, oh, she's alive now. That is the only way I see that happening. Those are the two things. As far as like them going back in time and doing it, I don't think they'll do that. I don't know when they're gonna get to like time and all that extra stuff, but who knows? Like, that could be it, but I feel like there would have to be so much more. Like, it would have to be somehow, of all the people, Hank Pym got his hands on that and was just like, got it, and he went back and he saved his wife. And that was it. And, like that, I feel like that's the only way that could really take place. And then, otherwise it still has to be the missile thing, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would that remotely be the case? Like, why would anyone have this missile from, 30, 40 years ago today? Like, I would understand if they had it and it was like 3 years later or a year after, and it's like we were, working on the tech or something if it was slightly better than, you know, what they had. But at this point, it's definitely not. So I don't know how they're gonna do that. But in all honesty, I think that's what I'm most excited for, is how they're gonna bring her back and make it work. Cause that's all I can think of. They're probably gonna have something way better than that. I don't really know, but that's all I have right now. So that's what I'm most excited for the future of Ant-Man. Aside from him being in Captain America, which is going to be pretty cool. And that kind of ties in with the, not only the final scene of the movie, but the final or the second after credit scene. And so with him being looked for by Falcon, it's like he needs him to do something, and odds are it's to break in somewhere. And then they tie that in with the end credit scene, and I have to assume that it's like the end credit scene takes place before the end scene of this film. So it's like, they're figuring something out. We get to see Bucky. It's an actual scene. Like, it's straight from Captain America 3, which I always love that when it's like, it's not just a little trailer. It's like, here's an actual scene. Although I do love when they do like the actual scenes and they make it specifically for the movie. But we got both. So we got one, like, this is the after credit scene or in between credit scene for Ant-Man. And then the after credit scene is for, the next movie, which it always is. But this one was just like, here's the scene. And it was kind of like that with, I think the first Captain America movie. And it was just like a super long trailer. And they did have like an actual minor scene, which was when Captain America was working out. And he like punched the punching bag down. So it was really cool to see that. I thought it was a cool scene. I don't understand the context of it in any way, shape, or form, because it's obviously, like, they have Bucky there, and it's obviously the scene in the film, so they just were like, here's the scene, and it was just to say, like, Ant-Man is coming back for Captain America 3, but, when they showed Bucky and stuff, it's like, oh, it has something to do with him, but it has nothing, it can't possibly have anything to do with Bucky, unless they need Scott to break in somewhere and steal a machine and then get it to them so that they can give Bucky all of his memory back. Like, that's the only way that makes any sense whatsoever, because I don't know what they could possibly need Ant-Man for involving Bucky. And the main thing in there that kind of says that is like, okay, Falcon says something to Cap and he's like, if he told Tony, and Cap's like, he wouldn't even believe us. So it has nothing to do with Bucky. It's not like, oh, well, we found Bucky or something like that. It's something totally different. It has to be something maybe about Hydra, maybe the Mandarin. Like, who knows? Maybe it's something crazy like that, and it's like they find out from Bucky somehow, I don't know, that the Mandarin, the real Mandarin, is actually alive. And it's like, if we told Tony, he wouldn't believe us because he thought he killed the Mandarin, and he found out who the guy actually was. So, I don't know. Like, it's really out of context. I thought it focused on Bucky and they needed help with that, but he's just in the scene and they got some info. So they need Ant-Man for something. I would assume stealing something huge, something really important. So with Ant-Man being in there, I have to assume Hank Pym is going to be there as well. We might see Hope as the Wasp, which would of course be really cool. It just depends on how they're doing the fighting in that film and exactly what's taking place for sure. So we just all have to wait and see. But it was a cool scene. Out of context, it was kind of confusing. Like, why do they need Ant-Man for whatever? But they need him for something, so he's going to be in there. So it was definitely really cool. Like I said, with the end scene though, with Falcon looking for him, aside from that being really cool that he was looking for Ant-Man, that was probably my favorite funny moment in the movie, because Michael Pena's character, when he was telling his stories, those are my two favorite moments. And the ending one was definitely funnier than the first one to me, because in the first one, he was talking with his friends, and it was just like friends talking to friends, and then it was, at the very end, it was like a guy talking to his girlfriend, and they were doing something, having like some sort of party around a bunch of people. So with Michael Pena talking and them saying what he's saying exactly, it wasn't as weird. It was like, okay, they probably talk like that because they're all doing a bunch of illegal stuff and just hanging out, drinking and smoking, all sorts of illegal things, and they're just talking with friends. They aren't in a business setting. They're just talking and it's normal. It was like, it was still really funny, but it was like, all right, they would probably say that because they're all just friends talking casually. But when he did it the second time and they had the woman who is in like a full on dress and she's like, done up and she's a reporter, and then she's talking like Michael Pena, I thought that was the funniest thing ever. And she's like moving her head and stuff and saying like yo and like I got all this and that. It was just really funny to me. Like I love that scene more than any of the other ones. I thought that was my favorite funny moment. And they had a ton of great comedy moments. They had the Thomas part. They had two of them. They had the one that was in the trailer, and then the part where he grew really really big. And they also had one where when he landed on the windowsill, that was actually pretty funny too, because it was like, oh, excuse me, he has like a giant train coming at him, and Scott like blocks it, and it's almost like it's like this giant train that's getting tossed in the air, and then they zoom out and it's just like a little toy flying through the air, like someone just tossed it on the windowsill. And I thought that was really funny. It was like a big thing, like, oh, if that happened in any other movie and someone like knocked a train out of their way, it would like explode or something crazy. And it's just like, no, it's just a Thomas toy though, so it just landed on the windowsill, really simple. And I thought that was just really funny and cool. The scene where Scott's friends try to help him at the house, and then all those cops, there's like 20 cops just turned around real slow, and they're just like, all right, we're just gonna back it on up and just back up and get the heck out of here. I love that scene for sure. That was definitely really funny. And they just held it. It was just like just backing on out for like 15 seconds. Definitely a good scene. Lots of other really funny moments. One moment that was actually funny to some people, I just thought it was actually a really cool scene, was when Hank and Hope escaped from the labs, and they used a little tank on the keychain, and he was like, it's not just a keychain, and it was an actual full-size tank. I personally thought that was just a really cool moment, because it was like, oh, he just, he has a tank, keychain. No big deal, it's just a little tank on the keychain. And then he just drives it out, and I was like, that was really cool to me. Like, some people thought it was hilarious. I thought it personally, I was like, that's just really awesome to me. Like, he just had a tank, and you don't really get more prepared than just, here's a tank on a keychain. It's like, I can just hit a button, or I don't know if he had one of the discs on it, discs, on him or whatever, and that's how he grew it. But ultimately, it doesn't make any difference. It's just like, boom, here's a tank. One thing that was funny about that was the fact that the whole thing was tied together, because I guess when he shrunk it down, that's how he got it put on the little key ring. Because I thought initially, like, oh, it's just the tank, and then the tank lands, and then like the whole keychain just slams on the ground too. That was kind of funny, but mostly I still thought it was just really cool that it was an actual tank. So I love that scene. Highly doubt he got the tank back, but I'm excited to see, if they give him something else in the next movie or whatever, and it's like either he has another tank or maybe a better tank, like a newer version of a tank or something like that, and he somehow gets that from somewhere, somehow. So I'd love to see that if he has another little safety keychain, like boom, here's a jet engine, or something, and then we got a full ship. Let's get the heck out of here. But I thought that was a really cool moment. And that came, right after a moment that really scared me, because I thought for sure that Hank Pym was going to die in this movie, because it made sense that they could have easily killed him. Like, I think it would have affected a lot of people if they did, because at least Hank Pym is still in it, but they totally could have done it, because it's like the whole point of this movie is Hank Pym, who was Ant-Man, is passing along, everything to the new Ant-Man, to Scott Lang. And it's like, well, when you do a passing of the torch, the older person can be killed off after the younger person has learned all their lessons. So when they had that sort of standoff scene, I was genuinely worried. I was like, they could actually kill him off, because he's the older character. It's not like he's going to be Ant-Man anymore. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, they could actually do it. And then everything kind of worked out. When Scott used the disc on himself and he grew big and everything exploded, and they had the whole thing happen. And then in the middle of that, Hank was still shot, and I was like, holy crap, they actually did shoot him. But I was glad he survived it. That was actually a really good scene. And I guess, obviously that was intentional. And so they left that open, and that allows him to still be alive to get the info from Scott at the end of the movie to be like, hey, I don't remember how, but I did go subatomic and I came out of it. So I'm glad that he is still alive. We get to see Hank Pym. We might get that interaction between Hank Pym and Tony Stark, and he can talk to him about his father and stuff like that. So we might actually get that scene. Maybe in Captain America 3 if Hank Pym is in it as well as Scott Lang and possibly even Hope. But that was definitely a surprising scene. I was like, I don't know if he's actually going to live through this or not, but fortunately he did, and that was definitely a cool moment. The Avengers tie-in stuff with Falcon, not just the ending scene, but the fight scene, definitely loved that. The other references they made to the Avengers, like they might be too busy dropping whole cities and stuff like that. That was a cool little reference. They referenced Spider-Man in the movie, the scene with Falcon, with him like crawling on walls and stuff like that. And they were talking about it being three different people. It's like we have people that jump, people that crawl, people that swing, and stuff like that. One speculation I heard is that it's all about Spider-Man, even though they make it seem like three separate people. And I don't know, I feel like that actually makes sense. I personally can't think of three separate people. Like, I think of course, the last one, we got people that crawl on walls. Automatically Spider-Man for sure. But the second one, when you hear someone that swings, I definitely thought of Spider-Man for that too. And the first one, we have people that jump, and I heard that could have been the Hulk, because obviously that's how he really travels, is he jumps. Then I thought that definitely makes sense. People that swing, I don't know. Thor swinging his hammer, like I have no idea. I don't really know. So either way, they throw some references to some people. One of them for sure is Spider-Man. The other ones I can't really think of at all. The one for swing, the only other person I could think of was Daredevil, because he does swing around a lot. I don't know if he technically calls them nunchucks, but he does tend to swing around, the city once he gets to that point, and he'll swing around on stuff and everything. So, and he does kind of jump around a lot too. So the first one could have been him, it could have been the second one. I don't know, but they reference some other people. We'll probably have to look that up to get definitively who the heck they're talking about with these super generic terms like, we have people that jump. Like, I don't know. I jump. I don't know what that means. But I did love that scene. They did reference it. One video I watched is that they did write that reference in way before the Sony thing happened, before they actually had Spider-Man in the movie. It was just our way to reference Spider-Man. So I thought that was actually kind of cool when I found that out. So that was a nice little thing, whether it was beforehand or not. It was still a cool reference that's in there. It just kind of makes it even cooler now that, since Spider-Man will actually be in it. So I love the movie. A lot of great moments to it. A lot of great stuff with the villain and stuff, his motivations and things like that, and the way he did turn. And I mentioned that him being affected by the particles, it just didn't make sense to me at first. And then I was like, oh, well, I guess he did shrink, he shrank the little lamb, and he was right there. Possibly did it more than once. I don't know if the vial being on him affected him 100%, but maybe it did. I don't know. But either way, I mean, he's dead now, so who gives a crap? He's done for. Cool fight scene, though. Definitely really fun. In all the madness, of course, back to the scene where Hank gets shot, and they also have a tank, and Scott gets captured, and all the other craziness happens. Hydra's in there, so they do have a vial. Like, the whole thing was destroyed, the whole facility, but they have a vial of the particle, so we're gonna see it again. I don't know if we're gonna get more Yellow Jackets, or if we're gonna get people that grow. Maybe we might get evil versions of Giant Man, which was one of the personas of Ant-Man. Instead of him shrinking, he would grow. So we might get that out of a villain instead of from Ant-Man himself. And they may or may not do the whole army aspect that they introduced in this film. And because Hydra still has it, they'll just have to figure out, how do we multiply this serum. And because they have to multiply it and dilute it, it might not come out exactly the same, where you can just shrink and grow. It's like you shrink and that's it. You're shrunk and you stay tiny forever, because it's not exact. exactly from the source. So we'll definitely see how that plays out. I'm just gonna definitely come back for sure with something as powerful as that. So I'm really excited for that one. Um, the Mandarin, an actual Mandarin coming back should be pretty cool. Them kind of fixing the mistake on Iron Man 3 should be pretty fun to see. And full on suit, I'm excited. Hopefully, I'm assuming they're going to do it right, so hopefully we do get that. Um, like I said, I'm most excited for Wasp coming back. I'm definitely excited for Captain America 3 and everyone pretty much being in it. The introduction of not just, Spider-Man, but also Black Panther. Not as big of a deal. Not only, well, for one, even if, I don't know, even with the Sony thing, Spider-Man, I feel, probably because I just like Spider-Man more, Spider-Man and Wolverine are my favorite too. So that's probably why. But Spider-Man is way more popular than Black Panther is right now. And that might change. Hopefully it will, because I love Black Panther. I've seen him in a lot of different stuff. I think he's really awesome, because he is. But Spider-Man, just aside from even two separate movie franchises, Spider-Man is just incredibly popular. He's probably got the most games out of any superhero ever made. It's probably Spider-Man. He's got the old stuff on NES. There's like one on PlayStation, or maybe two of them on PlayStation. You have the Spider-Man movie games for like PS2. Amazing Spider-Man movie games for the current generation. There was like Spider-Man Web of Shadows. There are like a dozen Spider-Man games. And then after that you have like maybe X-Men games. And then probably Batman games. So maybe there might be more Batman games. That's probably the only other person is Batman. But, we got Spider-Man coming in with so much appeal. And then we also have Black Panther coming in. So we have two people coming in. Then Black Panther's getting his own movie. Who knows what's happening with Spider-Man, because he's already getting another franchise and all they constantly just restart that. But who knows? It's going to be awesome to see him, so it really doesn't matter. But this movie is definitely a great lead-in to Phase 3, and I'm definitely excited for what they have set up. I mean, we get a lot of stuff for Ant-Man specifically, with Scott and Hope being a couple, which I thought was also really well done. They had like one actual scene, which was when Scott, and I guess it was sort of typical too. It was the scene where he was like super buff and stuff, and he's like healing a wound, and that's like the one scene she looked at him. But I honestly forgot, because it was the only time they did that. And there's the one scene where they were in the car, and they actually became okay with each other. But that was just like, they became okay with each other. And there was a specific line where she says like, I almost started to actually like you. And it was like those three moments, and that was it. And honestly, I think that was like halfway through the film when she said that I was started to almost like you scene, which was obviously just a joke to mess with Scott. But that was like in the middle of the movie, and they still had the rest of the movie to go. I completely forgot about all the relationship stuff, or even the subtle hints that they put in, and then they were kissing. I was like, oh yeah, they did all that stuff in the beginning. There were like three little moments. So they didn't, it wasn't shoehorned in. It was really subtle, although, like I said, kind of typical, with the very first scene being, oh, she's looking at him with his shirt off, which I thought was kind of funny. Like, that was the first scene where they show, like, oh, she kind of likes him because she's looking at him with his shirt off, and I just thought that was funny. But I like that, so that's in the future. Original Wasp coming back somehow. Excited for that. And everything else they got planned, definitely excited for. But I love this movie, of course. I want to know, the biggest moments out of the film. What were some of your favorite parts? Some of your least favorite parts? One thing that I guess I should talk about is the Anthony thing. I know a lot of people were mad that they did it where it's like he got, like I said, I can't remember the name of the villain, but he actually shot Anthony with like a random bullet. Some people were talking about how he was aiming and stuff. You could tell he obviously wasn't. He was just shooting around, and he just happened to get that because it was a movie. It was meant to be sad. It was like, oh, he killed the one ant that had an actual name. And yeah, it was kind of sad. It was like, oh, that really sucks, because it's the only ant that actually had a name. They kind of make you care for the ants too, except for the scene right after that where they're fighting in Cassie's bedroom, and they're just ants getting lasered all over the place. I'm like, well, he doesn't give a crap about these guys, but Anthony gets shot with a bullet. it was a huge deal. Everyone else is just like lasers, they're getting disintegrated and everything, and it's like there's a billion ants dying right now. But I thought that was kind of funny that people were complaining so much as if he was aiming. It was really obvious to me that he was just randomly shooting. It's like 100 flies, hundreds of flies coming at you. He's on there somewhere. He's just like shooting randomly, and it was just a bullet. One thing that didn't make sense is that technically anything around that bullet would have definitely been affected. It wouldn't have just hit the ant, and Ant-Man could have jumped off. It still would have been like a bullet whizzing through the air with a bunch of force blowing it back. Everything else because it's a bullet. So technically the physics on that didn't make sense, but him randomly hitting the ant made perfect sense because it's a film. But he wasn't aiming; he was just randomly shooting, and that's just how it played out. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this movie, as far as the really, really big points. And I definitely want to know what you guys are most excited for that was kind of introduced in this. Are you guys excited for the original Wasp coming back, the new Wasp, or Ant-Man being included in Captain America 3, and just the future of the cinematic universe and all that other stuff that he's clearly going to be involved in? So definitely comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.